me to do anything on Zoom? What can I do?
Got it.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay.
How are you, Chi?
Doing good. How are you? How is everyone?
Thank you.
Well, Caleb and Camille might turn into popsicles during our meeting. It's very cold in the conference room, but
Oh,
otherwise, well.
oh my gosh.
Thanks, folks, if you're joining us online or via YouTube live stream. We will get started in a few minutes. We have to wait for a few members of our task force to join us so that we hit quorum. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks in the subcommittee, so we need at least 3 to officially commence. We have 2. Hello, James.
I don't know if you had time to probably not see my email, but I have to sign off at 3:30 and sign back on at 4:30. I have something was thrust upon me that I cannot avoid today, unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks for the heads up. Thea will be joining us as well until 4:30, then she'll need to transfer to her phone, so we might lose her temporarily.
Okay.
Hi, Toria. Oh, she's still connecting.
Oh,
Hi, Toria, how are you?
I am.
You are. That's something. Well, thank
We
you.
understand.
Okay, well, we've got quorum. I have a couple of slides to run through on the front end, so we're just after 3 o'clock. I think I'll get going if that's okay with folks, and hopefully we get Irene and Thea to join soon after I'm done with the front end slides. Does that sound okay? Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so happy to have you with us. Today's afternoon meeting is a meeting of the California Agricultural Land Equity Task Force, Goal 3 Subcommittee. Goal 3 is focused on equitable land transition and land acquisition. Before we begin, oops, I have a floating window here that I am trying desperately to move and it is not working. 1 second, here we go. Okay, thank you. Before we begin, I will remind us all about the task force. The task force was established in the California Budget Act of 2022. It's a 13-member independent body directed to submit a report by January 1st, 2026 to the Legislature and Governor. The report will include a set of policy recommendations on how to address the agricultural land equity crisis. Task force members are working now to finalize this report of recommendations by the deadline, so coming up soon. The report is being developed following 2 years of meetings, site visits, guest speakers, presentations, and community engagement sessions across California. And in this case, the subcommittee, Goal 3 subcommittee, met about 10 days ago, and this is a continuation of conversations that we commenced to advance specifically the section related to Goal 3 in the draft report. Before we begin officially, please give me a moment to review our participation guidelines. These are our standard participation guidelines, and we kindly request that everyone who joins us for the meetings adhere to these, whether you're a task force member, a staff member, or a member of the public. In all of our meetings, we respect diverse perspectives, encourage inclusive participation, and use courteous language. All speakers must be respectful, considerate, and on topic. So today focused on Goal 3. Together, we always have historically and will continue to work together to create a safe, respectful, and inclusive space for meaningful discussion. So thank you very much. All perspectives have value and insight in this room. We do have a couple of public comment opportunities today, a few that are specifically related to agenda sessions, and one general public comment period before we close out at 5 p.m., in which case during the general session, folks are welcome to make comments related to task force business overall. Other sessions are specific to those particular agenda items, and you can indicate that you would like to give a public comment by filling out a form at this website listed here, sgc.ca.gov/meetings-events. You can fill out a separate form for each item. Also, you can raise your hand on Zoom. That way we'll know you'll want to issue a comment and we'll know to put you in the conversation queue, at which point in time staff will call your name and unmute your microphone. And we also request that folks adhere to a 2-minute timeline, and I will help keep track of that for us. Where do you find your Zoom hands up? It is hiding somewhere in your Zoom toolbar in the bottom right, most likely, either under a raised hand feature or under a heart or smiley face icon that may or may not say reactions. Got some options there. Cameras are optional. Love to see smiles. Quick review of our agenda before I'll do a roll call to take quorum. We had on here approval of the summary from your prior meeting, which took place on September 4th, but I must apologize. I was negligent in sending out the draft summary, so folks haven't had a chance to review this yet. We're going to table approval of the summary until a subsequent meeting, and following this meeting, I'll send the draft summary out to task force members for review. So then we will have a working session in which we will be focused on advancing development of draft goal 3 and sub-goals contained therein for potential inclusion in the report. Before we close out, we will, as always, review action items and check in on any follow-up tasks and give ourselves some deadlines. And then make space for general public comment. So that's our plan for today, and looks like everyone is here. So let me do a quick roll call. Task force members, when I say your name, please come off mute and say hello or here for the record. Let's start with member James Nakahara.
Here, present.
Member Doria Robinson.
Here, present.
Member Chi Zhou.
Here, present.
Member Thea Rittenhouse.
Present.
And member Irene De Baracua.
Present.
Wonderful. Everyone is here. No members are absent. Quorum is achieved. We're official. Oh, and pardon me. Joined today, my name is Megan Wiley. I'm with Sacramento State. I provide staff support to the task force along with my my fabulous colleagues over at California Strategic Growth Council, Tessa Salzman, and in the conference room, we have Camille Frazier and Caleb Swanson. Okay, let's go into the working session for today. I believe Caleb is going to kick us off with this conversation. Similar to a couple of weeks ago, we'll continue dialogue on the goal 3 recommendations and sub-goals therein. And always please hold in mind the order of the recommendations as they might show up so that we can put the ones with most impact first. And we're, of course, always considering the scope and level of detail for each of the sub-goals. You ready, Caleb?
Ready. Yep, I'm ready. Next slide, please. Thank you, Megan. So just starting off with a quick overview of changes that have been made to this section of the report since we last met. Starting right at the top, sub-goal 3.1 and 3.4, we added language including farmer-led land-based cooperatives regarding eligibility of these entities in various recommendations and making sure that they are included kind of throughout the report, but also specifically in these areas. So just wanted to note that. Then on recommendation 3.1B, we heard during the first meeting of this subcommittee requests to kind of add a clause conditioning loan forgiveness on the implementation of ecological and regenerative agriculture practices and traditional ecological knowledge. Staff just wanted to note prior task force conversations kind of on this topic where there were concerns raised about the conditioning of incentives or benefits on the adoption of these practices. And so we just wanted to make sure that the language in 3.1B kind of appropriately balances those differing priorities and perspectives to make sure that certain priority producers and land stewards aren't being unintentionally excluded from these benefits or incentives. We also wanted to note if the task force might want to further define ecological or regenerative in this recommendation to be more expansive than just certified organic. Megan, would you actually be able to pull up 3.1B just so we could look at that language quickly?
One quick second.
Thank you.
Are we seeing the right document? 3.1
Yes.
B, great.
So see right there, that sub point I is the specific recommendation. We're talking about that last sentence, condition loan forgiveness on the implementation of ecological and regenerative agricultural practices and traditional ecological knowledge. Let's pause here for any comments or feedback. Yeah, James.
On board, I just with BI, for clarity, I'm caught up in the language a little bit around support land acquisition for priority producers and land stewards, ensuring eligibility for farmer governor and the co-owned and co-stewarded land. That's in addition to other types of entities that could have, right? Because it's okay. Sorry, I just needed to say that out loud. Sorry. No, all good.
Thanks, James. Thea?
Yeah, I second James. It's a lot in that. Maybe suggesting there is that all should be under just I. Maybe we parse that out a little bit more clearly. I remember we talked about that eligibility specifically at our last meeting. If your question is about further refining and defining, I think at least I've heard from conversations with different tribes around the state as a part of our tribal listening sessions with this project and others that traditional ecological knowledge might mean different things to different tribes. And I don't know if we are a task force that should be defining that per se. Could be a variety of things. The state board the state board, which Dory is a member of, and she helped with this process of defining regenerative as well. We could reference that definition if needed for I.
Great. That's helpful for us to look at and consider referencing. James, do you want to go again?
Yeah. Sorry. If you got another thought, keep going. Yeah.
Well, just one last thing is that the conditioning, I don't know how I have mixed feelings on that. Making loan forgiveness conditional on certain ecological practices. What if, depending on where the location of the land is or the access to resources or the condition, like there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not those practices can be implemented, like right away. Is it further down the line? I mean, shouldn't we maybe consider changing that word to be consider, or maybe softening that so that it is not so prescriptive? Because I don't know if there's a lot of factors that play into whether or not a person is able to utilize those practices on land right away or not. And maybe that would also require some kind of verification, who's going to do that, et cetera, et cetera.
James, then Doria.
Yes, I agree. I mean, the language that popped into my head is like incentivize, but do not make it exclusively contingent upon implementation of those practices for the reasons that Thea just laid out. And I also had a thought on the definition, like for TEK. I think I agree that I don't think we should come up with a definition for that, but I do think we could flag that different sovereign tribal communities view what those practices are differently, and we can call that out. Like we can say that like traditional ecological knowledge is not it is dependent, because then that actually gives sovereign tribal nations the ability to say this is what it means for us, and then they can get the loan forgiveness accordingly. That would make sense to me, something like that, where we acknowledge that it doesn't mean one thing, it means independent things to sovereign nations who then say what they are back, and that's the loop there.
Yeah, thanks, James. Doria.
Yeah, so I'm going to strongly advocate for loan forgiveness in particular, not the low interest loans, not reverse amortization. I always have a hard time saying that word. Not those two categories, but specifically the loan forgiveness, advocating for that to be connected to agricultural practices. I don't know if this language is the right language, ecological or regenerative. I feel like if we're going to be basically putting forward a recommendation that says that the state is going to help people buy land full out as grant, in the end, it's grant funds because the loan is forgiven, then I think the state should be getting something in return besides increasing access, something beyond increasing access, And I think that there are many grant programs who have ways of verifying practices. And I think that we can leave it up to, you know, uh, the staff who would be managing this program to set a threshold of how many agricultural practice or what kind of practices will qualify for loan forgiveness, based on what has worked with other existing loan programs. I just feel like it's an opportunity to highly incentivize people to do things like cover cropping and use of compost. And, some of these things are very low hanging fruit, practices, where, especially if we're going to be totally forgiving a loan that helps somebody purchase and own land, as opposed to just offering very low interest loans, which is already a very good thing. I think that the state should be, getting a little bit more for it and it should help the state move towards its climate and kind of other sustainability goals.
I definitely see that point, Doria. Maybe it's just the terms that are used there. Maybe that's something we could align those terms with the programs that are already existing at the state then to form that incentive. I was just thinking more of like, you wouldn't want it to be punitive, and maybe those particular terms are what is, they're more narrow in scope potentially, but there are examples where the state, has programs already that are incentivizing these types of practices within even Department of Food and Agriculture, the SALT program, others where that could be strengthened. That's certainly a method to to get more to get more practices implemented. So maybe the suggestion is then to look at these terms and climate smart ag practices, maybe something like that, which is more utilized at the state level and already have some metrics established.
Maybe this is a question for CDFA staff and other staff who are running existing programs of what language could be used there, in order to clearly have clear incentives with clear outcomes that can be clearly measured.
James, I saw you had your hand up.
Sorry, there's a leaf blower out the window. I'll be right back. I can't. Yeah, sorry. I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, Chi.
Yeah, I am totally agree what just Doria just mentioned. The second part, condition loan forgiveness on the implementation of ecological and regenerative agriculture practices. Most of, I think the resource conservation district are helping lots of farmers from other underserved communities implementing the ecological regenerative agriculture practices already. Are we making those all of those including the underserved communities and plus other communities too? So if we are making this recommendation into this draft, are we making those loan forgivable for all those producers that are doing cover crops and those kind of practices? To my understanding, a lot of farmers are doing this type of thing already. Are we making those farmers their loan forgivable for all of them?
I think we're not offering this kind of assistance to all farmers, right? Like this kind of assistance is not being offered to all farmers. This kind of assistance is being offered specifically
Yeah.
because of being a disadvantaged farmer, right?
So the implementation of those ecological and regenerative agriculture practices is open to all producers.
I'm wondering, Chi, is your question related to whether this loan forgiveness is for all loans that have been received by priority producers and land stewards who are practicing regenerative ag? I'm reading this as that loan forgiveness is part of the program that it is recommending be funded. So it doesn't open up loan forgiveness for all farmers practicing. Am I understanding the question correctly? And I'm wondering whether task force members have,
Okay.
if that is your understanding of
Okay,
this.
yeah, that clarifies.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I think we need to break up B1 because create and fund is one thing, and then conditioning loan, like, are they only conditioning loan forgiveness upon the newly created and funded, or can it be implemented in other existing loan programs? Like, I think these are two different recommendations. I think one of them is to do the top part, and one of them is to do the second part. And so I think breaking that up creates more opportunities. And when I'm reading this is the loan forgiveness is only going to be in service of priority producers. So it's not like I mean, we need to look at that definition. I don't have it in front of me, but like, I don't think this would apply to like a large organic, like hundreds and hundreds of acres organic production farm that's stable. I think the goal of this is more for smaller scale under-resourced growers. And I think we kind of capture that in the priority producer definition, but that's how I'm reading it.
And so, James, just really quickly to clarify, when we pull out the conditioning loan forgiveness recommendation, do you want that to be tied specifically to this new program being developed in the first part of B1, or do you want that loan forgiveness to apply more broadly to other programs too?
Both and. I mean, like, I think it should
Okay.
be like, that's why I think we need to make them two things, because like one of them is we should condition loan forgiveness on the implementation of ecological and regenerative practices and traditional ecological knowledge. And we also want to create and fund low interest, forgivable, and or reverse amortization loan programs to support land acquisition for priority producers. Ensuring eligibility for X, Y, and Z. But I think the conditional loan forgiveness could apply to that newly created and funded thing. But I think there might also be some that are already in play in the state, and being able to have them adopt conditional loan forgiveness for using these practices would be something I think we'd be in support of. That's how I'm thinking about it. But yeah.
Great. Thank you, James. That's really clarifying. Doria, go ahead, and then I think we'll have to move on from this.
So thinking about this loan forgiveness, I'm thinking that, it occurred to me that it'd be great if it was kind of structured similarly to the public service loan forgiveness program for student loans, where, there's a certain amount for the amount of time that you've done the public service, you get some kind of equal amount of forgiveness, or you build up to be able to have forgiveness of the loan, because then that would encourage not a one-time application of, compost, but rather an ongoing practice. So it's just a thought.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question, following up on, in particular, what you said, James, about breaking that out, and it sounds like there's agreement. Looking at 3, so B, III 3, it seems like that may already do what you're describing. So just noting, perhaps we can combine the 2 clauses.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I really, really like what Doria just said about, public loan service forgiveness for student loans. All student loan programs are going through chaos right now because of what's happening at the federal level. But I think that model of like conditioning the amount of forgiveness for the amount of implementation in some type of correlative way makes sense. Like, I agree, like you shouldn't be able to forgive, a $250,000 loan for applying compost and cover crop to like 2 acres, but if you've been applying cover crops and compost to 2 acres for your whole lifetime of farming, then I think actually maybe you should get a $250,000 loan for good. I mean, that might be a little bit of an extreme, but like I like that framework a lot, because it also incentivizes ongoing implementation and perpetuity.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That was very clarifying for us as staff, and we'll go in and make those edits based on the conversation we just had. Megan, if you could hop back over to the PowerPoint, please. Just really quickly, I'll run through the other revisions that have been made to Goal 3 since the subcommittee last met. In recommendation 3.4a, we added language around mandating culturally competent technical assistance, including for Black farmers. For 3.5, we changed the name of the Land Market Monitoring Department, formerly the Observatory. We changed that to what is now the Land Market Monitoring Program. Sticking with that new program, we added language clarifying the purpose of the program, including promoting fairer markets, expanding opportunities for priority producers and land stewards as well. And then, again, sticking with that program, we received community feedback, and based on that feedback, added some disclosure requirements for those with larger land holdings. And then lastly, based on the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago, we created a new subgoal 3.6, that is focused on addressing land consolidation. And so we'll have a chance to come and talk about 2.5 and 3.6 more as we progress through the working session. Megan, next slide, please. So we have a couple of slides focused on this new land market monitoring program. And before we kind of dig into this conversation, wanted to provide the time for everyone to go ahead and take another look at the briefing materials that were sent to you over email. I believe Megan just re-upped that in all of your inboxes. You should be able to easily find it. And we'll just give a few minutes for you to review the briefing materials and the associated articles that are linked in there. Just as a preview for that document, it includes questions that advisory committee member Adam Kahlo answered that were raised during the first subcommittee meeting. And the article is from an op-ed that Adam wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle, focused on a land market monitoring program, or as he calls it, a land observatory. And he noted that the article was written with the task force in mind. And so I'll give a few minutes to review that document, and we can maybe come back around 3:35 and start chatting again.
Is it in the most recent email?
Yeah, Megan's forwarding didn't have the attachment. Would anyone like me to now re-forward with the attachment?
Yes,
Or do you
please.
have it? Okay, I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Of course. Just James, anyone else need this in front of them? Oh, okay. It seems.
I think I just found it.
Irene as well.
I found it, the original, and thank you though for.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, it's hard when you BCC. It doesn't auto-populate. 1 second, it's coming to you. You should be receiving it in just a moment.
Thank you.
That's interesting feedback from the advisory committee. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're ready, I think we can go ahead and hop back in. So as you can see up on your screens, we have some questions focused around this new program. So what I think would be most helpful, but if this is not happy to adjust, is I'll read through kind of all these questions that we have, and then we'll pull up the recommendations where the land market monitoring program is referenced and kind of review that all together. And so these questions come from either advisory committee input, interagency reviewers, public member feedback, or just general questions that staff have had thinking about this as we've been developing the report. And I'd also like to preface that some of these questions, the answer to can also just be, no, we don't want to pick this up, we don't want to address this, or this is out of scope for the task force, all of which are completely fine answers to these questions. And so the first one we have is specifically around 3.5A, and wondering if the recommendations should specify additional data that this program should collect beyond ownership, lease rates, and demographic trends. The recommendations also call for the land market monitoring program to develop a report, and wondering if the task force would like to specify what that report should focus on. Is it focusing on largest landholders? Is it focusing on sales with the implications for sustainable land management? Also, who holds the reporting responsibility for this program? Is reporting pre or post sale? And who must do the disclosing? Also, if all of the data above is collected, are there additional disclosure requirements for larger land holdings? And if so, how are larger land holdings being defined? Just kind of holding all of that. Megan, can you flip over to the recommendations 3.5? Thank you. Then open it up for discussion.
I really liked Adam's recommendation on the pre-sale versus post-sale for collection of data, and then also some very specific things about, I mean, for the administrative burden. That's a very, very good point. And I know we talked briefly about that in our last meeting. And I agree with what he's written about it could be included in the tax assessor office. I mean, it seems like that would be the least administratively burdensome for the actual person purchasing and selling the property. Yeah, that's just my first thought on that, the pre versus post sale question. And I like the idea of having a report of trends. I think more than once a year would require, of course, more staff to make that happen. And so that would probably be dependent on where that program would be housed and the budget to pay for those staff to do those tasks. Those are just my first thoughts.
Thank you, Thea. James, I think you're up next. Then Doria.
Yes. I'm just curious if when you all asked Adam, did you ask him at all about surveying all agricultural land or just assessing pre-sale versus post-sale? The only reason I ask is that I know there's been multiple times where it's come up that the concern is that there's land that's being taken off the market before it's like kind of in a place where people know about it. And so there was an idea passed around about surveying agriculturally viable land in the state so that it's clear going into a pre-sale. Like I what I liked like the reasoning behind the post-sale tracking makes sense to me, and I like the suggestions about the pre-sale tracking too that he gave, but I also think if there is going to be the LMM, that it would make sense for one of the initial roles to actually be to survey a lot of land and start with that, and then moving forward using post-sale as kind of a metric. And I would also agree that once a year makes more sense to me than twice. Twice a year is like a lot. That's like everything's going to be in service of the report, not other outcomes if it's like a twice a year thing. But at the same time, like having information faster can help people. I don't know. I'm kind of more on the one side than the once a year than the twice a year, but I would be curious about other people's thoughts about this entity being able to do a survey as one of the initial pieces of work to actually assess the entire state.
Ray, I think you can go. You can jump in here.
Okay, I was not sure. Yeah, I can remember who's next. So I want to agree with the survey idea. I think that'd be a very powerful tool to understand what land is available, what is the kind of starting point. I think that's really important. I think when it comes to the other questions, I feel like we have to ask ourselves, what is our ultimate goal? What are we trying to do? And what does having post-sale data allow us to do? Because although it's a great thing and we could probably set policies, like future policies based on post-sale data, I don't think it will directly help us increase access to land for underserved producers, for primary producers. It could in the long term if people were to act on annual post-sale data to create policy, but that's a really long way around to get to the goal. And it's costly for setting up a whole program to do it. And I wonder if the more direct route would be something else. So, if we're okay with the long route and that we're not going to have impact, but we're going to invest lots and lots of money in setting up, standing up a department or a program with staff and doing this annual report, collecting all this data, changing all the assessors in order to possibly have someone have the data they need to put forth a policy in order to impact change. It seems very domino effect. And that is worrisome to me, to invest that much and not really know if we're going to get our ultimate outcome. I understand the burden of pre-sale, but I wonder if using the suggestions around narrowing the scope of pre-sale so it only is larger plots of land or land that's agriculturally important, if that would help relieve the burden so that we could make impact sooner. So those are more like concerns. I don't think post data is bad. I just think it's not going to get us very directly to our goal.
Yeah, Thea, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, Doria. It is a longer, what would the purpose then be post-sale? It would maybe, yes, like you're saying, influence future policies. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around what would that look like? And is the state of the best place to hold that pre-sale or like set up that mechanism to collect that data? How would that increase access for farmers? Would they would have, I'm just trying to, I mean, I don't know how that would look. Would be something like with FarmLink that they have the land matching services where they list parcels for sale, or that a centralized place where it's mandated that if you're going to sell your property, you have to report to this program to then list that in advance of a sale. I agree that would be something more like, but the pre-sale would be more direct and address the equity, but I don't know if that would necessarily, I'm just talking out loud here. Like, is the state the place for that to be? I don't know. I don't know if that would make it more accessible or not.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I feel like I feel like this whole land observatory came about because of this issue of people trying and wanting to buy land, but it's never posted. They don't know how to find out, and by the time they
Right.
do, it's already sold. Like that was the problem that it was trying to solve, right?
Mhm.
And I do feel like we're drifting more and more away from solving that problem, and I just wanted to kind of flag that. And maybe this isn't the proper tool to solve that problem. Maybe that's some other tool. Maybe we need to consider whether or not this is a strong, considering how far it would be from being able to impact change. It may help. It may, honestly, this tool may help us address something like um, consolidation of land or kind of ownership by investment entities better than it would increasing access specifically for underserved farmers,
Right. I agree with that. I think it may go further to address that rather than those stories that we've heard over the past few years.
The farmers would still experience that same condition. That condition would not change on the ground.
On the local level, on the ground, there's a whole lot of other barriers.
Yeah.
I think that this wouldn't solve.
Go ahead, James.
I think there's already a problem of corporate consolidation of ag land and purchasing it, and they all have access to that information and nobody else does. And I think having an entity that can survey the agricultural land so we actually know where it is and like have information available for people. One, like if there's a through line of a lot of the visits that I've been a part of, it's that people don't know what resources are available. There is a fundamental lack of exposure to resources, tools, and opportunities. And I think having something that surveys agricultural land in the state that was publicly facing so people could actually learn more about what land is available and is not available is very, very important. In terms of the pre and post sale monitoring stuff, I mean, I'm kind of agnostic there. I don't really see like tracking post-sale sale prices of ag land over a long period of time might have some utility, but that's pretty ethereal or emergent down the road. I think surveying ag land so that we actually know what's up, and I don't think that, like, if the concern is that, like, nefarious corporations or things like that are going to misuse the observatory. I feel like they already have that information, and there are so many other things in the recommendations that would preclude them from being able to do the kind of exploitive practices in the first place. And at least it would be above, like, at least the land would be above table and people could know and be like, we can track this land that like somebody could be in a urban area and be like, who owns this lot of ag land out here adjacent to the city in this like wilderness urban interface. And I think that is really powerful. Putting information publicly for all to see feels like a good thing. And like I do think like we need to be cautious about bad faith actors and people misusing these things, but I already think that's happening. And so I don't think there's a lot to be lost from putting everyday people on an even keel in terms of access to that information.
Tori, did you want to bring in your comments?
I think I was just saying that, the more I think about this, the more I think that the survey is the most powerful part of the recommendation in terms of the goal of the task force. I'm not saying that the other things are not good and they're not helpful to combat other ills in the agricultural sector. But in terms of our task force goals, it feels like establishing that survey that's maybe updated annually is the more powerful tool. I don't know that that means that I would be interested in taking the rest out, but yeah, yeah, the more I think about it in terms of just impact, the survey feels the most powerful. And the database, of course, of the results of that survey and having it be regularly updated.
Should this be land marketing database and survey?
I think it would be helpful to clarify what the survey is. So is that who owns ag land now? Is it who's planning on selling now? I think that would be helpful because we were kind of talking about two different survey reporting mechanisms, pre and post.
James.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good question for the whole task force. That specific question is like what would you want in a survey? I'll say that like the things that jump into my head about what it should be would be a comprehensive survey of agriculturally viable land in the state of California. And I think there are there are certain tools around soil surveys, and like we know soil type mapping's already been done for the state. So I think it would kind of be like overlaying, parcel maps onto various types of soil that we know about to survey that, to have a clearer picture about that. But that's just me, like that's my first pass thought at the survey beyond feeling like it's important. I think like I'd be really curious what like Dorian thinks about a survey and like what should be in it too. And maybe just agriculturally viable land is actually too narrow. Maybe there needs to be a little bit of like I'm thinking about like marginal vacant land in cities as well, and like or land that could be repurposed for things that doesn't have to do with agriculture but is important for tribal communities. So like I think my definition with like viable agricultural land is a little bit narrow, and so I would flag that as something for everyone to weigh in on.
And Dory, I do have your note that you said earlier to understand what land is available and what is a starting point. So yeah, go ahead if you want to expand on that.
I guess I just wanted to also just say that I'm not to the point where I want to take out the other pieces, the market monitoring part, the post data as recommended market monitoring part. I feel like we could still, what does it hurt to include that in the recommendations? it would have a broad positive, could have a broad positive impact over time for many producers, not only the disadvantaged or primary producers. I just wanted to make that clear that I could still see some good with the monitoring program, but just to be clear in terms of the goals of the task force, I think that the survey is the one that's gonna at least show people where they could try to find land, who the responsible party is that they may need to talk to.
One quick thing to note there is that there are maps, James, you had spoken to this. There are, for instance, the farmland mapping and monitoring program that DOC oversees. There are jurisdictional maps that CAL FIRE actually maintains, because it's related to fire risk and responsibility. So there are actually existing maps. I'm wondering, and I apologize if I did miss this, but the survey, I'm wondering, is it about parcel level ownership data? What is the survey doing that might not already be just an overlapping of maps that exist?
Yeah, I don't know what exists.
Okay.
But I would imagine if we knew who owned what parcel and how to, and some kind of contact information or at least a full name, then that might allow producers who are looking for land, some kind of an avenue to reach out to current owners to see if they're willing to sell, if they are selling,
Okay, thank you for clarifying the level of specificity that would be important there. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to second that. And I know from the FM, the tool you were talking about, I think that map you mentioned, that one I think would be definitely one to consider as part of this. And I know, I believe my understanding is that all parcels need to have a public record of who owns them already. So I don't think if there's gross privacy issues here, this is public information. You can go to the assessor's office and find out. Now, it might not be the name of the owner, it might be the name of a trust, but at least you have the name of the trust and an address. So I think it's important to have that information available. Yeah. And again, I think, yeah, I'll stop there.
Can I read Thea's comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna read Thea's comment out.
Oh, I can say it. It's fine.
All right, go ahead.
That I was just copying and pasting what Adam had written, which is about the data being about ownership already being largely available. But his recommendation was to aggregate it and make it directed towards this. The program could conduct extensive land ownership analysis in a consistent and reproducible way. Maybe that's the survey. Yeah, just wanted to know, maybe we do have some input on that already from him.
I also wonder if the existing assessor data, that public ownership data for parcels, does it say whether or not it's used for an agricultural purpose outside of the zoning? I wonder if that's the innovation here is connecting that existing public information with information about its agricultural or tribal traditional uses viability.
It's a good question, Doria. I know this. I know that DOC does map land use in addition to its classifications, but I don't know the extent of that, and I don't know how that would map onto parcels. So that's a good question to think to bring into the conversation. Do staff feel like we have a sense of the way forward here? Are there any further questions from staff to put something together?
So I'm wondering if you have any specific questions.
I think that was another very thorough conversation on this topic. I know we've had a lot of them. Maybe just flagging like this question around large land holdings. I don't think we need to go there if the task force members don't have anything pressing to say, but I think that's maybe the one thing that we didn't get to.
Okay. I'm just skimming through some additional questions that we had. Tessa, I'm curious about the land linking services and if that might be something we want to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Are you going to go back to the slides or do you want to just stick here? Because maybe putting those questions in the chat would be helpful.
I'll put them in the chat.
Okay, great. So yes, noting here, wanted to follow up in part on this request by the task force, by the subcommittee and by other members of the task force to do that compilation of across the report where are you guys recommending new entities, new programs, new funds. And so we're working on that. We don't have like a comprehensive way of kind of sharing that out with you yet. But one of the things that came up just as far as streamlining and reducing redundancy is this, let's see, is it C? Yeah, so 3.5C, the land linking services. And so this is already reflected elsewhere in the report in 3.4.B. If you maybe want to scroll up, Megan, just so we can see that recommendation. So this is a recommendation about technical assistance, suggesting that regional cohorts of technical assistance providers are stood up. And then it lists the various services they would provide, including land linking services, advice on land access and acquisition, and guidance on securing fair purchase and lease agreements. So wanting to see what your preference would be as far as reducing that redundancy, this recommendation we're looking at right now is under the broader header of technical assistance. So it may make more sense there, but wanted to, float that to you guys. So essentially removing that land linking comment from the land market and monitoring program and leaving it here and maybe building this instance of it out a little bit more to ensure that we're capturing all the detail from the other place that it's mentioned. Any strong feelings about that or ideas?
What was the sub point number on that one?
So right now we're looking at BI.
Okay.
Just where it lists one of the services that these TA providers would offer.
3.4 BI.
Yeah.
And I think one of the sort of overarching questions here would be, does the land market monitoring program or whatever it is named have the responsibility of the land leaking service? Or is this, where is that responsibility sitting? Is it about funding organizations that either do now or through this kind of increased capacity that's here to do that work? Or is that work with like the state? Is I think what one way of determining where that recommendation belongs. I hope that distinction makes sense. Happy to rephrase if not.
Sorry, Camille, you're asking to rephrase to I and I, or if it makes sense? Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Yeah, sorry. So right now, maybe scroll back down, Megan. Right now in the land market and monitoring program, it suggests land linking services. So that's C up on the screen. To assist priority producers to basically find land. And so we're suggesting moving this C right here up on the screen up higher to 3.4, where it already outlines a bunch of different technical assistance that's needed, including land linking services.
Okay, I think the difference being if it's left here under 3.5C, that would mean that whomever is administering this program would be responsible for land linking services. Whereas if it's moved up above,
It's with
then
regional cohorts.
it will be
Yeah.
regional cohorts. Okay. I mean, I'm in favor of moving it up rather than keeping it under the program, only because we have great examples of those types of programs in our state, and maybe there could be more rather than a state level program.
Thanks, Thea, and thanks for helping us clarify the distinction here.
Sorry, I mean, thanks.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I think that tracks. The language around the above point, like the one that it's nested under, okay, so where is it? Oh yeah, can we go up back to the B here? Did we have I just establish and fund regional cohorts of technical assistance providers. If we're talking about like support existing or create new where there need to be technical assistance provider organizations and have them collaborate, I think that makes sense. I do worry sometimes about like money going towards planning to do something versus it actually like going to delivery, and there's just something about the language of B that feels a little ambiguous there to me, and maybe I just need to like offer some alternative language, but I do think that like regional cohorts are going to be better at, like, I agree with everything that we're saying. I guess it's all good. Sorry, again, I just needed to like say something out loud, and then it made a little bit more sense, I think, for me.
I'm wondering if maybe, James, part of what right now B is doing is it's sort of couching funding for technical assistance under the establishment of technical assistance cohorts. And I kind of hear you saying that maybe this is not something to bury, kind of burying the lead there. I'm wondering if that might be part of what you're picking up on.
Maybe. I mean, I guess I'm trying to think about how this looks in counties where there's a ton of resources and counties where there's like no resources. And like, I'm thinking about a county where they might not have, an alphabet soup of organizations who can become that regional cohort. Like maybe there's only like one or two. And I guess in that case, those two would be the regional cohort technical assistance providers. Which is why I think that all works. But yeah, I guess no, I'm good. I think I'm good.
I will note that one of the interagency review comments was what makes this a cohort? Are they all doing the same training? Like what is actually the organizational framework? So I don't know if that question kind of propels any new insight into what's being offered here. What is cohort about this idea? Is it just geographic proximity?
Well, there could be, we've heard a lot about the need to support more networking in regions, particularly like James said, where there's not as many. organizations thus far. There may be many that are in the area, but maybe aren't connected yet. So it could be networks, cohorts. I think if you're funding regions, maybe cohort is a more appropriate term. Just some thoughts on that. I think we've heard across the board that, you know, funding regional groups for TA is a good strategy. Regardless of whether another cohort or a group or some
Yeah, I agree.
whatever coalition. I don't know what word we want to use there, but
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we can like crack the thesaurus and like change the cohort to something that's like, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a sort of regional network, really, of technical assistance providers. But we can play with that. Thank you for entertaining the question.
And then another question that we had around the land market monitoring program was what, if any, relationship there is between the data that this program will collect and the implementation of the task force's broader recommendations. I threw that question in the chat for you all to look at and consider as well. And Doria, hearing your comment that instead of cohort could maybe use the term regional technical assistance providers.
Just wondering, how much do we want to lean into cohort? Are we really saying that we want to stand up? This sounds like another program that would need staff to coordinate, that would have some kind of capacity building, that would, you know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering if we're really saying that. I'm not necessarily against that, but I'm also wondering if we're really saying that. Are we purposely saying that?
That's the ambiguity that I was feeling. You stated it really well. Is just like, does this mean a new program to coordinate technical assistance providers to provide more service, and that's what's being funded? Or is it like, we need more people out in the world helping people on the ground with their needs? And that to me feels like slightly different. And yeah, I mean, yeah. So maybe taking cohorts out.
Is it funding for the coordination of existing technical assistance providers, and then perhaps in regions where there aren't many for actually, you know, establishing that or paying for a position? Like, is there something about just wanting to say flexible funding on a regional basis?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, coordinated technical assistance is complicated. Like there are, it's relationships. It's like, you know, it's like, even if there are mandates for agencies or institutions or NGOs to all work together, like it all depends on people, and it also looks really different in different resourced counties. So I think like flexibility, I mean, the important thing is increasing access to technical assistance, which means increasing funding for technical assistance providers so that there can be more technical assistance providers to help more people. That tracks to me. Yeah. I like, yeah.
Sounds like what you guys are saying is perhaps updating this language so it feels a bit more direct, funding directly to efforts already happening. No need to establish cohorts or existing or additional infrastructure to make this happen. So perhaps sorry, go ahead, James.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to double stamp Doria's last comment about we don't want to like exclude emergent providers from coming into the space.
Perhaps we can try to tweak some of this language to reflect that. Yeah, go ahead, Irene.
I was just trying to kind of grasp the whole cohort thing, but I mean, I do like the idea of a more of a coordinated effort. So I don't know if that would be a, you know, cohort or a, you know, program of some sort. But I'm still trying to understand now the other alternative is just more funding towards what's kind of already happening. And no, not an organized type of coordination or
I think really the question for me here is this a recommendation to fund the coordination of technical assistance providers, or is this a recommendation to fund technical assistance providers? And I think probably both of those things need to be funded. The language just needs to be clarified so that you're not losing one in favor of the other. I see I'm seeing you all say fund technical assistance providers is like kind of top level. And then as part of making sure those technical assistance providers are doing the best they can for their communities, also assist with that kind of collective strategizing, that kind of regional cohort building. Is that an accurate kind of nesting of ideas as you've expressed here, and making sure that that kind of top level is at top level?
thanks. That's what I was understanding, how you just explained it. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Irene. Is that representative of, I think everyone's touched on this a bit. Does that feel like a summary of where we're at? And then land linking services will come here and staff can make sure that language fund technical assistance providers is kind of top level. And then these other pieces are brought into it. Does that sound right to everyone?
I think so. I'd like to read it maybe after that is changes made, because the list now would be the eyes underneath there is kind of a mix of what types of support, rather, so if we're funding technical assistance providers, are we then saying the funding should be used for those X, Y, and Z things? If so, maybe that just to double check that the language or how it's phrased still fits once the change is made under B.
I believe that what we can do is make sure this language is flagged for you all as subcommittee members, so that for the October draft, if you did have any comments that you want to make sure are part of, the revisions or the conversation for October, you can then send those comments to staff, and we can just make sure your comments on revised language are included in the next public conversation that we're having. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Megan, if you could actually, I think, hop back to the PowerPoint. And then next slide. Next slide again, please. Okay, so another thing that we wanted to talk about you all with, this is kind of our last question on the land market monitoring program, is we heard at the subcommittee meeting a few weeks ago, request or desire to look at all of the new entities that are being proposed in the report, and where we're calling out existing agencies and identify opportunities for streamlining these recommendations in terms of, again, the new entities or the existing programs. And so we noticed some overlap or some potential overlap between the current recommendation in 2.3 AI, which is to direct collaboration of state agencies to identify state-owned prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance, along with other land suitable for agriculture, to conserve those resources and return them to tribal nations or make them available to land stewards. And note that agencies that are mentioned include the Department of Conservation, the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, and then what is being proposed for the new creation of the Tribal Lands Return Commission. And then this program, the Land Market Monitoring Program, also has language referencing that it would be between CDFA, the Department of Conservation, and the Tribal Lands Return Commission to ensure that kind of interagency collaboration. And so I think we talked about this earlier, kind of with the overlapping of the report, particularly, or overlapping of kind of surveys with existing products, including the farmland mapping and monitoring program that DOC runs. And so wondering if, or we are wondering if these two recommendations should be combined in the report, the land market monitoring program and this recommendation in 2.3 AI. Tess, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there.
Sorry, you caught me. I think that was, yeah, well said, if these should be combined. And I think specifically thinking about framing this land market and monitoring program as sort of an expansion, as an expansion of the existing work that's already being done at DOC. And so essentially this is a proposal that could look like expanding the existing program at DOC, and then therefore this land market and monitoring program would be housed there. So there's a couple pieces in that, basically where it'd be housed, and if you want to frame it as an expansion of the existing work.
So to confirm, otherwise they're right now in the LMMP, Land Market and Monitoring Program, there is no current place where that is housed, right? It just does establish a program. Okay. So yeah, wondering, task force, are you feeling like you just want to leave it at that level? You know, someone will take this up and put it somewhere. Do you see a home for it? Does it belong in DOC where they are already doing the farmland mapping program? Is there value in some other framework?
Just to clarify, so 2.3A is directing a collaboration of state agencies. Isn't that already happening in the farmland mapping and monitoring program? Or this is like in addition to, or is that being folded into the farmland mapping and monitoring program?
It is already happening to a certain degree.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that is like this recommendation will probably already be slightly revised because of that.
Mm-hmm.
This 2.3 is also then recommending kind of an expansion on that work, which is the second part there.
I mean, the benefit of combining it would be that there would be a home for whatever that program, the LMMP, whether or not that is a slimmed down version of a survey or other things like we talked about earlier. Is the difference here that the 3.5C says CDFA, DOC, and Tribal Lands Returns Commission, whereas up above it says DOC, CAL FIRE, and Commission. The only difference is the CAL FIRE.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, so there could be an alignment there, of course.
I mean, I think we should have the same interagency people. But there could be other agencies in there too. Sorry, this is.
No, yeah, just acknowledging this is a hard conversation because these two are currently doing quite different things, but they're connected. So in some ways, I mean, you guys can let us know if you want to just have us kind of propose what this change would look like and then give you that in writing. Perhaps that would be easier to engage with. You guys let us know what you prefer. And of course, this change does not have to be made. It's just a suggestion or an option.
I mean, probably you all have read through the report in its entirety more times than we have. So if you have a suggestion or proposal for us to look at the actual text, that might be helpful.
Yeah, James, go ahead.
Isn't there some language in AB 524 about that there would be I guess I know they're a little apples and oranges, but if we're talking about this 3.5C, the joint effort and who, maybe we should include the task force. Because I know in AB 524 it says like DOC with like we're in concert or something. I forget what the exact language is, but so there's already going to be that workflow potentially happening.
Would you all like us to revise this language to make it align and include this task force in that list? Is that the request here today or not?
Can the request be that we flag this for discussion at the next meeting?
Yes. But
that would be mine.
With acknowledgement that having language to look at it does get us that much closer. So I guess really the question is, what do you feel comfortable doing with your October draft? And what do you not want in your October draft? Does that make sense? That distinction there?
Yes.
So if you can give staff, I guess, guidance on what the level of revision you'd like to see in October, and then what is not appropriate for that draft but should be noted, that would be very helpful. That for us would be the next step.
I don't know if I can suggest. I mean, I just, there's like 3 questions that I have about this specific thing that I think should be flagged. I'm like, should it just be these 3? Should it just be these 3? Should there be others? Should it be the task force? I don't have answers. I only have questions. And I don't know what the most kind of conducive workflow way to make that come up in the next meeting is without, like, I get what you're saying is like, if we're going to draft language, then there's something to chew on. So I guess maybe just draft the language as is, and then we can flag it for discussion or something.
Yep, we can do it that way. We can at least align these pieces, but leave the kind of entities that are mentioned the same, and then just make sure that the question of entities involved in this is flagged in October. Does that sound like what you just proposed?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. That'll be the plan. Are there any other task force members who want to comment on that particular plan? Okay, thank you. Thanks for the guidance on that. I know it's tough to talk about these really specific pieces, but this is the point in the process where we really are in the weeds and really do have to make decisions about what is in the draft, what's not ready. So thank you for coming along with us on these very specific questions and mapping them onto time as well. So thanks for your guidance there.
Yeah, so kind of on that note, another specific question, Megan, if you could click to the next slide. So currently in the report, recommendation 3.1 AI3 and 3.2 CV or 5 is recommending that 25% of funding in these specific recommendations be set aside for priority producers and land stewards. We are wondering if 25% is the right value or the value that the task force wants in there. Noting that Proposition 4 sets aside 40% of its funding for related communities. So to rephrase that in perhaps a simpler way, do you want us to keep the value set aside at 25%, or would you like us to increase it to 40% in alignment with Prop 4, or a different value altogether?
Sorry, where's the, could you show the text of where 25% is, or maybe I can look at that document.
Yeah, can you
Just wanna
pull
see
that
what
up,
that's in.
please?
Is this related to AB 2377?
I'm not sure about that last question, but we're looking at 3.1 AI3, so that last one down there.
I
Oh,
think this
3.1.
kind
I'm
of
sorry, I was looking at 3.4. Ah,
It's kind of a larger question about, so when you look at AI, establish this grant fund, is the assumption that all of the funding is going to priority producers and land stewards? Or is it just a set aside? Because if it's the assumption that it's going to all of the funding is going to those communities, number 3 on the 25% can actually just be removed, right?
I think we're more specifically discussing eligibility for farmer-owned organizations. I don't remember us talking about its percentage. I vote to just remove the 25% sentence and keep that second part there. I don't know what others think.
So it's a require funding to be set aside. That makes sense to me.
I would prefer. Sorry, Doria, go ahead.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that this grant does more work than only kind of serving our core kind of target community. And by saying the next generation of priority producers, it could also include kind of young people who are not necessarily fitting into our other categories, but want to get into agriculture. If that's intentional, to create a program, through the vehicle of the Land Equity Task Force that's addressing, beyond our defined primary producers, then I would say, if that's intentional, that's what we're trying to do, then I would say let's increase the percentage and keep it in there, so that of this new grant program, this particular percentage goes to this particular subset of folks. And so I guess the question to everybody is, are we intentionally creating this expansive program that would include many more farmers or potential farmers than our tightly defined primary producers? I don't think that would be necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree with what Doria says. I don't see the negative impact of increase that number. Maybe I don't see the whole thing. I think increasing the number to whatever number we decided, 40% sounds good to me, but increasing that number, I see a lot of benefiting things about that, and I don't see the negative impact. Maybe someone can educate me on that. We're talking about helping the underserved communities and setting aside certain funds and to prioritize serving those producers. It's always a good thing.
I guess I'm confused if this, like you were saying, Dory, is the entire fund for priority producers and land stewards, or if this is for everyone who wants to be a new farmer. If it's the latter, if it's for everyone who wants to be a new farmer, then yes, we should have a percentage. If it's just insane, I guess I was reading the title there, establish new funding programs, but that's not necessarily the case. So if it is for everyone who wants to be a new farmer, then I agree to keep a percentage and to have it align with, well, Proposition 4 is a higher percentage. So yeah, sorry, I'm getting confused about these two separate things.
I see why you're confused. Now when I'm reading the 3.1, the big title, I'm a little bit unsure too. When I only read the 3.1, the sub-bullet number 3, I was thinking this is referring to all the state funds, all different kind of technical assistance grants and all other programs. And then I think raising that 25% to 40 is a good thing. But now I'm not sure too.
Go ahead, James.
I agree that, to me, 3, like the subpoint 3 under A1, I don't know why aren't priority produced, like this new fund would be for priority producers, so it should be exclusively for priority producers and land stewards. I'm getting like, and I also, the like new generational land transition grant fund, for some reason I think we should just call it the land transition grant fund. Like, I mean, or we could leave generational in there, but I think that implies certain things, and I'm not sure if we're all on the same page about everything that implies. But I mean, either I don't know why we would be making recommendations for a fund as part of the task force that would support people that are not in the priority communities that we're trying to solve problems for. That's where I'm getting confused. So I'm kind of like, I think it should all be for priority producers, and if it can't be, then whatever the highest percentage is, then that's what I would want it to be.
So yeah, I just think there's a lot of messy language here. I don't understand why a new generational, that language needs to be used if we're talking about priority producers. Are we really saying we're dedicating a specific fund for younger priority producers or people who haven't farmed yet? It's confusing. Why don't we just create a general fund and anybody who's a priority producer can use it? Or it would be some other fund that's focusing on, first-time farmers or young or young people who want to be farmers. It's confusing language, and also yeah, it's confusing language.
Perhaps this sub-bullet require at least 25 or 40% of funding be set aside. This part of language can be placed in other places. I do see the value of increasing that set aside percentage of the state funds. Those whatever funds like HSP, SWEEP, those kind of funds are will be benefiting to underserved communities, increasing their access to land. But maybe it just needs to be at other places, not here.
I'd like to propose that this is actually perhaps a different, it's not 3. It's actually like a II. Because there's this particular grant fund that we're saying we want to establish that's supporting priority producers. But then maybe this is for all other state funding programs, state grant programs that we want them to require a certain percentage of the funding to be set aside for primary producers. And that's 2 separate things. And this is kind of on the level of an II and not a 3 of this I, of the top I. You know, it's like a separate thing. It's like, this is this new grant program that's specific for it, but also in all the existing grant programs, this is a recommendation.
Megan, can you scroll down to 3.2C, please? So Doria, just following up on that a little bit farther, please, Megan, down to V. Oh, a little bit farther, 3.2C. Oh, there we go. So Doria, to your language there about improving all, or addressing this for all grant programs, 3.2C says to improve existing grant programs related to land access, stewardship, and tenure, be responsive to specific community needs. And then point V, requiring at least 25% or perhaps 40% of program funds to be set aside to support priority producers and land stewards.
Right. So this is redundant. It should be taken out of the one above. And we need to decide if we're going with the 25 or if we're going with the Prop 4 40%.
Yep.
There should be no reason to set aside within a program that's dedicated to this particular population, because it's all the population.
That seems pretty clear. So removing it from above, do you guys want to just quickly approve 40%? Seemed like there was some consensus around that. Changing this CV to 40%. Agree, says Chi. James in the chat, sounds like you agreed previously with Doria's general fund.
Yeah, I mean, I like the language of a general fund. I think whatever the highest percentage is, whether it's 100 or 40, I'm on board. This is the kind of I think.
I think we should probably keep going, right, Caleb? We have quite a couple
I think
more
so.
slides. Yeah. All right.
There's this comment that James has around farmer pensions. I thought that existed somewhere else in the 10-year.
I just Googled retirement and couldn't find it anywhere, but
No. It was a recommendation in land tenure, I believe.
In this
in the different section.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I just did a Google. I said Google, but I meant Control F for farmer retirement, and I didn't find anything. So I was like, oh, where did that? Or pension, maybe? Oh, pension.
Pension.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All good. I don't know how it's funded, so maybe that could come from the general fund. But anyways, on board.
Okay, Megan, can you scroll down to? Oh, sorry, James.
All good.
Megan, can you scroll down to 3.6, please? The very bottom. This is the new sub goal that was created after the discussion 2 weeks ago on the land consolidation discussion. So just want to do a quick gut check on this language and see kind of how it's sitting with you all.
Caleb, you're A and B?
Yep. Go ahead, James.
I'm pretty good with this language. The one thing I'll say is that CalPERS and CalSTRS are the two largest pension funds, I think, maybe on Earth. They're some of the largest. And I don't know if they already have land holdings that are farmland. And I don't actually know if that's important to this. But when this B recommendation says institute a pension and investment fund, I'm just wondering if there's a way to pull from that other to seed it with money from the other pension fund. Probably not, but they're ginormous.
I was thinking a similar thing around B. It's like if we're gonna create a fee, can we direct that revenue maybe to both seeding the acquisition funds, the grant programs, but also seeding or supporting or matching the farmer pension fund? Yeah.
Dory, do you mean if somebody were if a if a pension or investment fund did purchase farmland, the value of that would go into the farmer pension? Or
No, so the way I'm reading this is that A is proposing a law that limits pension and investment funds from purchasing.
Yeah.
And to me, limit says doesn't end, it limits. And so there would still be purchasing of land, but within some limit. And then when they do purchase that land, there would be a fee. That's what B does, institute a pension and investment fund land ownership fee and direct the revenue to support farmland acquisition for priority producers and land stewards. And I'm saying, okay, so if these entities do purchase, then we're saying there's going to be a fee, and that fee gets directed to the purchase of land. But then I'm also saying maybe a matching fund or some kind of something for the farmer pension fund.
Okay, that makes, I got you. So in the
Yeah.
limited band where they are, that
Yeah.
would be part of the fee that would fund.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So it's a disincentive as well as a limit. But then it's a good disincentive because it goes to support these things
Right.
that, it might give a legislator wiggle room to have something like that actually be able to a law like this to be able to be passed because there's good happening on the back end.
This is Thea. Sorry, I had to switch to my phone, so it's hard for me to read the language. But I also like the chat about the farmer pension fund. I also really support that as part of that fee. That would fund not only acquisition, but a pension fund, healthcare for aging farmers.
Great. James, I see you have your hand up if you want to go.
Oh no, I just forgot to take it down. Sorry.
Okay, all good. Yeah, we can revise the language to make those changes. I know we're running close on time. Tessa, is there anything else that you want to make sure we cover, or should we go to public comment?
I think, could we maybe get to one or two more? What do you guys think? 5 more minutes? Or do we have a lot of public commenters? I haven't looked.
I think we can go 5 more minutes.
Do you want me to jump into these next slides, Caleb? Or did you have? Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tessa.
Okay. Yeah. Megan, next slide. So we have a couple slides here with community input that we wanted to summarize and share, and we'll see what we get through. This first one here is emphasizing the connection between land ownership and water access and ensure that funding can be used for water access and infrastructure. So my question for you all was if you want to include water access and infrastructure as eligible expenses in this proposed grant fund. Or if, you know, there's a different fund that should be supporting those activities, so as not to kind of dilute the amount of money available for land access, you know, more directly. Yeah, James.
Very briefly, I look, we all acknowledge that land tenure is critical and that water and infrastructure are critical, but like if the name of this fund is the Land Transition Fund, like it should be primarily for land transition, which means down payments, you know, assistance payments, mortgage assistance, like things like that related to transitioning land between people. And I think there are going to be other avenues, several, for the for funding for water access and infrastructure. I think there's gray there too, but just based on how we're naming this fund, like if we call it a general fund, then I think opens it back up. But if it's land transition grant fund, then I think it should primarily be for land transitions.
Okay. Does anyone feel differently than what James just outlined?
I guess I feel like having too many neat nuances to starting up a new program would then make the conditions where we'll need multiple programs to address all the nuances that are happening. And I wonder if a general grant program fund that has different segments that the funds could be used for, kind of like a segmented grant. Like sometimes you have a grant that has an implementation element and a grant that has a, you know, kind of a development element. You know, it's the same grant, but you can apply for an implementation grant, or you can apply for I forget the word they mostly use for it. And maybe this is a fund where you can apply for acquisition funds, or you can apply for tenure funds, you know, and there's a different percentage dedicated to each, like maybe 75% acquisition, 25% tenure, you know. I just feel like the more we have to create new things, the less likely our recommendations are going to be real things in the world. And if we can consolidate the new things that we want to create and create more complexity within the new thing, it'll be easier to establish things that then can become and grow over time, but at least we get it established. But if we say, in order to really address all these things, we have to create 5 new grant programs, rather than one grant program that has different things that it funds, yeah, the lift is easier on one.
Other folks. Okay, got it, James. James says he's on board, but thinks we should change the name of the fund. Okay. We've heard a couple of different tweaks to that name. And enumerate the segmented allocations. Okay. What about Irene, Thea, Chi? Do any of you want to weigh in on Doria's proposal?
I'll just say that I agree about the lift. And I do think that there are some other existing grant programs that are available to tackle infrastructure costs.
I also agree, yeah, with what Doria said, and it could grow over time.
Okay. Chi, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I have to hop off. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chi. Okay, so it sounds like we have a little bit of reworking to do on that 3.1A, or whatever the generational land transition fund is. Changing the name so it's more general, and allowing for all of the different, from land access to land tenure, sort of eligible activities. under one bucket. Well, we got through one more. Nice job, guys. That's great. That was helpful. Should I just turn this back over to Megan or Caleb? Did you want to jump in?
You have one public comment.
Oh, great. Okay.
Caleb, did you want to wrap up anything? I'm going to zip ahead a couple of slides here.
I don't have anything to wrap up. Just thank you all for the conversation today. It was really helpful, and we will modify the report based on all that we discussed today. So thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay, public comment, we'll just combine public comment on the working session as well as general public comment. Since there's only one in the queue, William, you're in the queue. Staff's going to go ahead and unmute you. And when you're ready, please go ahead and share your comment.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Bill Lipe. I'm from Monterey County, unincorporated Monterey County outside of Salinas. And thank you for the presentations today. I kind of look at what you're doing as is really big in nature, and I'm a little bit shocked that there's not somebody from agriculture in that room. I guess I'm in the room, but I think I'm the only one in the room observing what's going on here. And as someone who's been on the sidelines with the ag titans here in Monterey County, and also one who's gone up against them, especially in regards to water, which I found interesting at the end there. You touched upon water, which of course is always important to go along with the land. But I think you're all, and this is not being disrespectful, I think you're in a bit of an echo chamber here. And I think you don't have the right people, or at least one or two more people that are actually in the industry or have the history of how, when you're talking about land acquisition, I mean, a lot of stuff here, at least around where I'm here, and I don't know if I'm on a time limit, you can tell me if it's too long, but, we're dealing with Spanish land grants still. They became, they transferred to Mexico, and then the federal government came in and established U.S. patents. And so the water here is mostly tied directly with the land. You get over in the Central Valley, it's not the case. The land is separated from the water. And so there's just a lot of complexities there. And as far as building a database, I mean, all the information you were all asking about, it's all publicly available. I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel. I think you just need to go to the assessors and say, give me your data dump, and then build a database. Now, I'm going to tell you, folks here, landowners, especially ag landowners, not just here, but all over the state, they're going to be very worried that you're taking an inventory of their land for potential purchase. And so I think you might want to build some buffering language in here about what is this thing going to do? I heard several comments about, we need to invoke action now, and that's going to scare a lot of people. And in this environment that we're in today, and we got all sorts of regulations and SGMAs in place, Groundwater Management Act with water, and you got all these other array of agencies that are responsible for, telling you what you can do on your land. I think this is just one more log on the fire. I do appreciate the time. I'm going to look at your historical stuff here. I'm going to look at your document too, because I think you guys could use some help. Obviously, somebody used AI to generate it. I don't know why you're not doing it just in real time, just adding this stuff and editing the document as you go. And we can't in the public access the chat. So all the stuff going on in the chat is not public facing. So thank you for the time. You all have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. And just a quick reminder, so we've got some work to do to incorporate the text and figure out how to bring those conversations into the October draft in the upcoming October meeting. And just a reminder, on Friday, we've got Goal 2 Subcommittee, continued conversation from conversations about 10 days ago from 9 to 11. Goal 4 is next week, Tuesday, September 23rd from 9 to 10:30. Restorative lands, also next week, Wednesday, September 24th, 3 to 5. And then, of course, we meet as a full task force October 15th and 16th in Ventura, also virtual option to attend. Meeting notes, recordings, and all materials are posted to our project website here, sgc.ca.gov/meetings/CALEFTETF/. That brings us to 5 o'clock, folks. Really appreciate your time and your continued engagement, and keep up the great work. Thank you. We look forward to seeing some of you later this week.
Thanks, everybody.
That will close out. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.